Hello, welcome back to the next episode of the Narconon and Scientology Chronicles. I'm Lucas Catton, and today we're going to talk about the hypocrisy of Scientology's Youth for Human Rights organization. I'll give you a little bit of background on this. So, the Youth for Human Rights International is an organization that was founded in the early 2000s by a Scientologist named Mary Shuttleworth. She's from South Africa. And she has a very talented filmmaker son named Taryn Lexton. And a number of years ago, I had written a script for a film, and I was searching for help to produce and direct this film. And I had reached out to Mary to try and reach her son, Taryn, because he had put out these really slick-looking videos for Scientology for the Youth for Human Rights, which copies the universal and promotes the Universal Declaration of Human Rights from the United Nations. And they had this united video, and then they did these little vignettes of all the different points of the United Nations Declaration. So they're really good-looking videos, and on the surface it looked like a really wonderful purpose and what they're doing. So I had reached out to Mary Shuttleworth and gotten in touch with Taryn Lexton, and there was no interest. He was an up-and-coming filmmaker and a darling of Scientology at the time, so it wasn't going to happen. He wound up marrying Scientology actress Mary Sol Nichols. They later divorced 10 years later, etc. But they're very steeped in this. But in typical Scientology fashion, here's the real deal about the Youth for Human Rights International and the hypocrisy behind it. So, first of all, the purpose of any of these Scientology front groups is to A, seem legitimate, B, gain support, and especially some type of governmental support or acknowledgement or backing of some type. But the whole idea is to cozy up to people of power and influence, and not state really who they are and what they're trying to do, so that they can then have people in their inner circle to try and influence them. And there's just tons and tons of examples of this, and this is one of them. The funniest part, and then really not, it's sad, but the funniest part of this is that of these 30 points of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was adopted in December of 1948 by the UN General Assembly, is that Scientology itself violates a number of these routinely. And yet here they have a front group, this organization founded by a Scientologist, forwarding Scientology in accordance with Scientology operatives to get closer to the UN, to be able to gain this recognition. And they use children. They use children who are trying to do a good thing and are trying to promote these, this Declaration of Human Rights. And they're unsuspectingly getting Scientology closer to people in governmental positions around the world. So the level of betrayal is multiplied on top of the fact that they routinely violate many of these points of this declaration, but they're using children to do so who are well-meaning. And here are some of the points that they do this. So Article 5 states, "No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment." There are many, many, many accounts that have been posted online and national and international media outlets of Scientology and their treatment of members of the Sea Org, and how from the international base and the hole, if you look that up and see everything that happened in the hole in California, and people that are made to, somebody's account was like, for example, to lick the bathroom floor clean, and they would lock people in the ship. They have this Scientology cruise ship called the Free Winds, and they lock them in there into the boiler rooms, and they have to clean the boiler in these really just terrible conditions. So right away, number 5, no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Yet Scientology Sea Organization does that routinely as part of their regular kind of, this is what we do to people who don't follow what we say, especially that are members of their Sea Organization. So number 12, says, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. There's multiple lawsuits and multiple instances going back a long time, including some right now, of Scientology doing exactly that. They interfere with people's lives all the time. People who have spoken out against them, who have exposed what it is that they're doing, they've hired private investigators to stalk people. They had the Squirrel Busters, for example, that for a full year, paraded out in front of Marty Rathbun's house back when he was outspoken against them. Like, there's just time after time after time after time, and so many examples of when they've been caught doing so, and then they've even admitted that they did this in court records. So they're not even trying to hide part of that. They say, yes, we've been doing this, so there's another violation there of Article 12. And I can go on with lots more examples. Some of the examples now with the suit against there's a civil case against Danny Masterson, and they've named the Church of Scientology as well, and they've talked about some of that harassment and things like that goes on in there. So there's even very recent examples of this. Number 18, anyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. So Scientology likes to say, hey, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, all this stuff, but yet if you violate our copyrights and you go out and practice Scientology in a non-sanctioned way, we're going to come after you. We're going to harass you. We're going to come after you in court. We're going to do all these things against you. They followed Pat Broker, for example, with private investigators after he left the church and had practiced outside of it, and some other people a long time ago, like in the 80s, and the Ability Center or Advanced Ability Center, whatever it was in California. So they started following people a long time ago and were filing lawsuits against them and saying, you can't practice Scientology in a non-sanctioned Scientology manner because it's a business, it's not a religion. So they went after them in a religious manner. You can read a Bible, you can read lots of other religious texts and practice as you wish. Sure, they may make the case if you buy one of the Scientology texts and you can do it. But if you start auditing people in the Scientology auditing manner and then advertise it and then try and charge money for it, they're going to come after you. So Article 18 does not apply to them apparently. But here they have the Youth for Human Rights and they promote all these different things. But yet this is now at least 3 articles that they're in routine violation of. And if you were like me and you have then spoken out against them and said, I forget that. I'm not gonna adhere to that. I've woken up. I've realized what this really is, and that I don't encourage other people to do it either. Then somehow I am attacked. They just recently put up the website against me again. If you go to lucascatton.org instead of lucascatton.com. .com is my site. .org is the site that they re-put back up against me that they had originally put up back in 2013 after going on NBC and publishing my first book against them. Anyways, so number 18 certainly is something that they routinely violate. Number 24 is another one here. Everyone has the right to rest and leisure, including reasonable limitation of working hours and periodic holidays with pay. Again, unless you're in Scientology's C organization, which is the people who sign billion-year contracts to work for them in one of their different churches, right, or other organizations around the world. If you are a Sea Org member, you're lucky if you get anything less than a 14-hour day. You're lucky if you get anything more than 5 hours of sleep. You're lucky if you get decent meals. You're lucky if you get even half a day off a week. Like, you might get one morning off a week. Might. Many times you get nothing. You work from 7 a.m. to past midnight, and then you do that 7 days a week. So number 24 definitely does not apply to their Sea Org. They may say, we believe that other people get this, just not our own most dedicated employees or volunteers, whatever you want to call them. And number 30 says, nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying for any state, group, or person any right to engage in any activity or to perform any act aimed at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms set forth herein. So number 30 then goes and says, hey, if you think that anything in here gives you the authority to go ahead and violate these rights against other people, then that's not the case. So we just want to put that disclaimer out there. So, but yet again, of course, they use this and other things as an excuse or reason for them to do what it is that they do, such as, the First Amendment and freedom of religion and beliefs and et cetera, as long as it doesn't violate their own internal rules, in which case it doesn't really count. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 of the 30 points in that United Nations Declaration of Universal Human Rights that Scientology absolutely violates on a routine basis. And yet they have the gall to have an organization promoting these rights that they are routinely violating. And if you even type in the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, you will see that they are paying money to pay for ads on Google so that the Youth for Human Rights International website comes up above the United Nations website because it's a paid ad. So, of course, they also use this as an internal fundraising thing because they can get members to buy the booklets where they distribute the Youth for Human Rights International booklets that has the 30 points of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, and so on. So there you go. That's my little story for today, is the hypocrisy of Scientology's Youth for Human Rights International. Till next time, I'm Lucas Catton. Take care.